Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into the really fascinating world of vintage radio-controlled cars.
Yeah, specifically those Tamiya legends, right?
Yeah.
The Grasshopper and the Hornet.
Exactly. These aren't just toys. They're proper cultural touchstones from the 80s. So much fun. So simple.
Absolutely beloved.
But, and here's the interesting bit, beneath that legacy, there's this curious engineering story. Like a real inherent flaw that's challenged hobbyists for ages.
Decades, really.
So our mission today is to understand that flaw, and then we'll really dive into a specific upgrade part, these things called hop-up bars, and figure out if they actually help at all.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is how a pretty simple design choice ended up creating a major handling issue.
Right.
And how understanding just some basic physics is totally key to solving it. You might be surprised by what we uncover about these iconic buggies.
Okay, let's unpack this unique rear suspension then. Both the Grasshopper and the Hornet, they share that bathtub chassis, right? And a sealed gearbox holding the motor and the whole rear axle assembly.
Correct. And this leads straight to a really critical concept. Unsprung weight.
Yes.
For these buggies, the entire rear drivetrain, so motor, gearbox, wheels, the lot, it's all unsupported by the main suspension springs and dampers.
So it just bounces around?
Pretty much. This whole assembly could be like 500 grams on a buggy that maybe weighs 1,200 grams total.
Wow, that's huge.
It's staggering. Nearly 40% of the vehicle's mass is just, bouncing around without the benefit of the main shocks doing their job properly.
30%?
Yeah. One hobbyist I read described it perfectly as the tail wagging the dog. And that really creates erratic handling because, well, that much uncontrolled mass just completely overwhelms the chassis.
Okay, tail wagging the dog, I get that. But here's where it gets really interesting for me, because the Grasshopper and Hornet, they look so similar, but they have this crucial difference in how that gearbox actually connects, don't they?
They do. The original Grasshopper uses a very simple, fixed, single-axis hinge. It basically only lets the axle pivot straight up and down. Simple as that.
Okay, just up and down.
But the Hornet, which Tamiya marketed as the sort of higher performance version.
Upgrade, yeah.
It has this floating axle design. It uses slots in these little coil springs on the pivot points. The idea, the intent, was to allow for more articulation, keep both rear wheels on the ground over bumps.
And this is the paradox, isn't it? The Hornet's supposed upgrade is actually the root cause of its most famous problem, the hopper hop or gearbox slap.
Exactly. It's why many experienced hobbyists, believe it or not, actually find the, let's say, cruder Grasshopper setup better for predictable handling.
Because it just prevents the hop from even starting.
Precisely. It simply can't happen the same way because the hinge is fixed.
So why? Why does the Hornet setup cause this hop? What's the physics there?
Okay, so the hopper hop is this predictable oscillation. When you hit the throttle, the motor generates torque, right? Basic physics says there's an equal and opposite reaction torque.
Newton's third law.
You got it.
Yeah.
And that reaction torque pushes the whole heavy gearbox assembly violently upwards until it literally slaps against the top of its mounting slots or the chassis itself.
Whoa.
And when it does that, that upward movement pulls the rear shocks to their absolute maximum extension. It effectively just locks the rear suspension solid.
Locks it solid. So the shocks aren't doing anything?
Pretty much nothing in that moment. With the suspension lockout, any little bump the car hits just launches the entire rear end into the air. Then it lands, the torque reaction happens again, and the cycle repeats. Hop, hop, hop.
That's incredible. So you're saying even if I spent a fortune on super high-end oil-filled custom-tuned shocks for my Hornet, it still wouldn't cure the hop because the whole geometry just prevents them from compressing in the first place.
That's exactly it. The geometry of the slap physically prevents those expensive shocks from doing their damping job when you're on the power. They become almost irrelevant to fixing that specific problem.
Mind blown. That completely flips the script on what you'd intuitively try first. Okay, so with that fundamental flaw now clear as day, what about those aftermarket parts? We've all seen them online, the shiny option number 1, hop-up bars, the aluminum rear struck tower brace. They look cool.
They definitely look cool. Anodized aluminum always does.
But do they actually do anything useful here?
Well, let's think about what a shock tower brace normally does.
Yeah.
In general, its purpose is to increase chassis rigidity, reduce flex between the shock mounting points.
Right, so the suspension forces go into the springs and dampers, not into bending the frame. Should lead to more precise handling.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
But here's the critical point for the Grasshopper or Hornet. installing just this brace in isolation.
Yeah.
It's really a secondary, maybe even tertiary upgrade, meaning it provides almost negligible benefit if the suspension is already being rendered non-functional by that gearbox slap we just talked about.
Ah, okay. So you're stiffening the mounting points for shocks that aren't even moving properly.
Precisely. You're bracing a damper that's effectively locked out. So without first fixing the gearbox rotation issue, that shiny aluminum brace is essentially cosmetic. It's bling.
Just bling. Adds weight, maybe.
Adds weight, adds looks, but doesn't add real performance gain against the hop. Its true value, its potential value, only emerges after you've solved the primary issue of the gearbox slap.
Okay, so it's like a system enabler. It only works once the system it's part of is actually functional.
That's a great way to put it. It enables the now functional shocks to work against a more rigid platform.
Right. So for anyone listening who wants to actually improve their Grasshopper or Hornet, what's the right way to approach it? It sounds like just buying cool parts isn't the answer.
No, definitely not just throwing parts at it. There's a hierarchy, a kind of strategic path. First, you need the foundational stuff. Things like full ball bearings instead of the stock plastic bushings reduces friction everywhere. And then, yes, decent oil-filled shocks. They are important, just not the fix for the hop itself.
Okay, bearings and shocks, tier 1. What's next?
Then comes the absolutely critical tier 2 fix. You have to directly address the gearbox slap. Stop that rotation.
How?
There are a few ways. There's the popular third shock modification where you add an extra shock specifically to control the gearbox rotation, or aftermarket braces designed specifically for this, like the ones from Ampro Engineering. Even simple DIY mods, like using a stiff wire, can physically prevent the gearbox from tilting upwards so drastically.
So fix the root cause first. Makes sense.
Exactly. And only after one of those Tier 2 solutions is properly installed and the main shocks can actually move and do their damping job.
Then and only then
does that rear shock tower brace, the option number 1 bar, become a legitimate Tier 3 upgrade. Now it provides that solid, unyielding platform for your dampers, which are finally working as intended.
Okay, that clarifies the whole picture so much better. Bearing shocks, then the gearbox fix, then the brace.
That's the logical performance path. And if we zoom out a bit, it really highlights how crucial it is to truly understand the mechanical flaw first. You can't just paper over the cracks with fancy parts. You need to fix the foundation.
It really makes you think. What stands out to me is how this simple, maybe even flawed design from the 80s has sparked so much creativity and innovation within the RC community just to overcome its little quirks.
Absolutely. It's a real testament to the joy of tinkering, isn't it?
Yeah.
The problem-solving aspect.
Totally. That endless pursuit of making something work better.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening to consider. How often do we try to optimize the details of something before we've actually fixed its fundamental problem?
That's a deep one. Applies to more than just RC cars, I suspect. Definitely something to mull over. From vintage buggies to, well, maybe our daily lives too.